Hey guys, it's Jessica from Peace Love Books, and today I'm here with some Christmas romance recommendations. I already did a video about like all the new Christmas romances coming out this year, but this is a video of ones I've loved. So I am so ready for Christmas. I cannot wait, like the way I'm so excited. I already have a ton downloaded on my Kindle and on audio, and I'm going to have the best time of my life, but I am here for you. So if you want like ones you know that I've loved, read these, because my previous video is just ones I have my eye on that like look really good but I haven't read yet, but these are ones that I recommend. So we're going to get started. The first one I am currently reading is Enemies to Lovers by Jennifer Shipman. Now, do not go into this thinking it's an enemies to lovers, because it's not. They loosely do not like each other when they meet each other, but like that quickly diminishes, and so it's more so them trying to fight this attraction, because she works at this like North Pole kind of amusement park, I guess, and he is actually literally Santa's son. So he is like acting as like CEO, like coming down to like oversee operations, and meets her, and she actually might be connected to the real North Pole and doesn't know it. And so he asks her to come home for Christmas with him. It goes from there, and I'm having so much fun. It's pretty short. I am already halfway through, and I've only read it for an hour, so it's like just over 200 pages. But I highly recommend as a new release. I'm really enjoying it. And we have Wreck My Plans by Jillian Meadows, which this is actually now traditionally published. I read this when it was indie last year. So good. So the heroine and the hero were kind of like almost a thing in the past, and he is her brother's best friend, and so she was not going to come home for Christmas, so he decided he was, because he was like, oh, it's not going to be awkward, like I'll come home and spend time with her family. And then she shows up, and everyone's like, oh, you're here, because it was a last minute change of plans. So now they have to be around each other during the holidays, like go Christmas shopping and bake together and things like that. So it's very forced proximity, and I feel like they also get snowed in at some point. She decides to just like put the past behind them and try to be friends this time, but obviously they're going to fall in love. So really, really, really love this one. Excited that it's now has this pretty new cover, that it's trad. You can find it like in your bookstores. So go ahead and check this one out. And we have The Season of Secrets by QB Tyler. This one is a forbidden romance. She's actually the sister from The Worst Kept Secret. So her dad has a relationship with her brother's ex-girlfriend, and so you kind of see a glimpse of her in the background of that book, where she is with her much older boss. And so this one pretty much starts out at their holiday party, and she goes and they go home together. And so definitely an age gap. It's boss employee, it's millionaire. It takes place during the Christmas season, not like super Christmas, but does take place during the Christmas season, and it is really great. I had a fun time reading this, so you want that taboo, spicy Christmas romance, read this one. And I have Big Nick Energy by Morgan Elizabeth. This one is super cute, because the heroine, she has 2 kids, and I don't remember where her ex is, but she is just like really feeling the struggle. And so the hero and her meet, and he, I think, is like friends with her friend's significant other. So they meet, and he's super into her, and she's like, I just don't have time for this, and he accidentally lets it slip that there's like the elf on the shelf, and her daughters are like, what? And so she's like, oh no, now I have to do this. So he offers to drive like an hour each way every single night just to do that stuff with her. If there's little ears listening, I'm not going to say more, but I really thought this was so adorable, and he is just someone who shows up for her, and he has a ranch, and her daughters like really love visiting, because the one is super into horses. So it's a really adorable single mom Christmas romance around the holidays with the hero who will like literally move the world for the heroine. So if that sounds good to you, read this one. Then I have An Alaskan Christmas by Jennifer Snow. This one I read in 2022, so it's a little bit fuzzy, but I do remember it felt super Hallmark. So the heroine is a doctor, and she comes back home. She's definitely very overworked, so they're like, you need to take a break, go home for the holidays. So she goes home, she runs into her brother's best friend, who actually works search and rescue in Alaska, which I thought was such a fun premise. And so she ends up helping out with the search and rescue with her medical skills, and they end up starting a physical relationship that turns into something more. And the Alaskan setting was really fun, and I just really loved their dynamic in their romance, and the fact that he was in search and rescue. Like, that was such a fun kind of different profession for a hero to have, but overall I really liked it. So in the end, she does have to decide, like, is she gonna go back to the big city? Is she gonna stay in the small town? So very Hallmarky. If that's what you're into, read this one. Then I have The Mistletoe Motive by Chloe Leese. This one is a novella, and it takes place in a bookstore. In this one, they both work in the bookstore and they have a challenge where they're going to see who can sell the most books during the holiday season. So this definitely very much reminds me of You Got Mail, where they're kind of rivals and they say they don't like each other, but then they're obviously really falling for each other. So if you want like the cozy bookstore setting for a Christmas romance, read this one. The next one I am obsessed with. So I do have new ones by this author to read because I love this so much, and that is Holiday Romance. I do have Snowed In to read this year, but this one is so good. So they became friends because they both would always go home to Ireland on the same flight every single year. So for the past like 10 years, they have spent this flight together going home for Christmas, and that's really the only time they see each other. Their flight gets canceled, so they need to have this whirlwind trip of getting home to their hometowns, and they end up falling in love. And so this is just like a different kind of year where I believe they have to like fly to a different country, and then they try to drive or they try to take public transportation, and it's just like a lot, and then they have to stay in a room together. He actually like really, really loves Christmas, so she really promises him, she's like, we're gonna get you home for Christmas, we're gonna make this happen. So that's why they're very determined to get back to Ireland. And it was just the perfect Christmas romance, and I could not rave about it enough. So if you want that travel romance with friends to lovers, this is for you. Then I have two novellas in one. So we have Holiday with the Players by Rebecca Genshak. So this does follow two sisters, and one of them I remember is snowed in a cabin with her brother's best friend. And the other one is, oh, it's with his college rival. So I believe the brother is a football player. So the one story in here is she gets snowed in with her friend, like who's her brother's friend, and she's always had a crush on him though, and then they end up spending like the day snowed in together. Great story. And then the other one, she meets her brother's rival and starts falling for him. If you want just like a really fun college romance where it's super, super festive and definitely very Christmassy, I would recommend picking this up. They're very short. So this whole book itself is 230 pages and it's 2 books in one. So definitely recommend checking out Rebecca Genshak's. It's part of the Valley U series, which is, I believe, her Wallflower series, if I'm correct. Maybe not. I think it's her Wallflower series. I could be wrong, but I think it's part of that world, so I really enjoy this one. Okay, Kiss Her Once for Me by Alison Cochrane is one of my absolute favorite Christmas romances. This one, our heroine spends like the best night ever with this other girl, and then she is gone the next day. And so what happens is we flash forward a year later, and one of the heroines needs money. I forget the reason why she needs money, but she needs money for something. And so then one of her friends that she always gets like breakfast with is like, why don't you marry me? Like, I have a ton of money, or he has like an inheritance that he'll get from a lot of money. And so they end up being engaged to actually like become married. Like, it's a fake relationship. They're not really interested in each other whatsoever. So he's like, I have to take you home for Christmas. So he does. His sister is the woman she had that amazing night with last Christmas where they were snowed in together. So it's very awkward. And they have to confront what happened and fall in love. So now she's falling in love with her fiance's sister, even though she has no feelings for her fiance. And then there's a family friend that comes in and brings a little bit of drama, and like the parents are just having fun watching it all unravel. So I loved this so much. So much family bonding during the holidays, and very forced proximity because like they're all in this, I think it's like a vacation home together, and it is just so good. So good. If you want a really good sapphic Christmas romance, read this one. The next one, I have no idea how I found it, but it is A Bookshop Christmas by Rachel Burton. I know that it's on KU, and that's definitely how I read it. But this one, our heroine runs the bookstore, and she meets this guy, and he's immediately rude to her, and he ends up being the author that is in town to do a book signing at her bookstore. She actually lost her husband 3 years ago. He passed away, and he, the hero, is divorced and very grumpy and rude, and so she's worried that she's ruined the bookstore's chance of like having a really great event that could really help them because the bookstore is struggling. But then they do spend more time together, and she does have a book club, and they do talk about different romance books. So I really liked how bookish this one was, and obviously it's between someone who owns a bookstore and an author, and they do talk about romance a lot. So if you want that really cozy Christmas romance that definitely is still emotional because of their past with romance, read this one. The next one I have is one that I actually have this author writes a lot of Christmas romance. This is Donna Ashcroft. So this one is Christmas in the Scottish Highlands, and the heroine I know, she's a teacher, and she moves into a Scottish estate Yes, so she's a teacher, but she decides to give up her house to a family who really needs a place to stay for the holidays, and she ends up moving in with this older woman who actually really needed her help. She saw her struggling, and she's like, let me help you, and the woman's like, you can stay with me. And her grandson is infuriating. He's grumpy, very Hallmark movie vibes. He's very grumpy, and he doesn't trust her. He, like, the heroine, because he's like, you're trying to, like, get money out of my grandma, like, I know what you're doing. She's like, no, like, I legitimately am just helping your grandmother. And so they really butt heads at, like, every turn. It's a very small town, and it's in Scotland, and it was just the cutest thing. If you want a cozy Scottish, very Hallmark movie romance, read this one. Like I said, I have a bunch now downloaded by her that I cannot wait to read. Do have Love Light Farms. I have 3 copies of this book, but they're like buried. So Love Light Farms is about a Christmas tree farm, and it is a friends to lovers fake like engagement romance, because the heroine has her Christmas tree farm that's really struggling, and so she puts into this like social media star. She's like, who like likes to visit small businesses and promote them. She's like, my fiance and I are loving this place, and so guess what? They end up getting picked, and now she's like, crap, I told these people I was engaged. And so she asks her best friend, who's been her best friend for years, to act like her fiance at the Christmas tree farm, and it is so good. I'm obsessed with B.K. Borston. I'm obsessed with all of her books, and this one was just so cute. Obsessed. The whole series is amazing. This isn't even my favorite in the series. Books 2 and 4 are my favorite, but this one's still really solid Christmas romance. I loved it. And I do have A Festive Feud by Maren Moore, which is a hate to love romance where their families are feuding. So they always have this, like, one of them at least always has this Christmas party, but the other one is never invited to, and I think they have like their party on the same night, and so they're always like, they're literally like feuding families. Mayor or something is like, I'm tired of you fighting. You have to plan this party together. So the heroine and the hero have to plan their family's Christmas parties jointly, and they really hate each other, but then they kind of uncover and unravel like the root of their feud and what caused it, and if they can like overcome that together during the holiday season. So hate to love rivals families, very cute Christmas novella. And the last one that I loved, I remember listening to an audio, is The Holiday Swap by Maggie Knox. One of them I believe is on TV, and one of them's a baker. So these twins swap places, and they both fall in love. Oh yeah, so the one heroine is a baker, and she loses her ability to taste and smell because she gets hit in the head, and she's supposed to be judging this competition. And so her identical twin sister is back in their hometown running their family bakery. They swap lives. So one goes to a small town, one goes to the big city. So one falls for a physician's assistant and one falls for a firefighter. So they obviously aren't telling people like their real identities. So it's really fun. I loved this when I read it. But when did I read this one? Was it last year? Oh my gosh, I read this in 2021. So I was like, why can I not remember the plot of this book? It's been so long, but I gave it 5 stars. I was obsessed. Highly recommend the audio if you like the kind of like swapping places, very kind of like Netflix holiday romance. Recommend this one. And those are some holiday Christmas romances that I absolutely loved. Let me know your favorites in the comments down below. I'm always looking for new recommendations. I will have everything linked down below so you can check it out. And if you've made it this far, leave me a Christmas tree, because this is all about Christmas romances, and that's all I have. As always, thank you so much for watching and have a good day. Bye.